Hello, welcome to
Hello.
the Canadian Bro Show. Very excited to be back. It's episode 14. My name is Paul Bale. I'm the founder, director, producer, host of the Canadian Bro Show, and very excited to be here. And for those that haven't seen the chap that's on my left or your right, that is wearing the Canadian toque, that is my old friend of over 50 years
Mm.
and my co-host of the Canadian Bro Show, all things Canadian with Pauly and Johnny, Mr. John Leister. How you doing?
How's it going, eh? I'm good, Pauly. How are you? Thanks for joining us, everybody.
Yeah,
Glad
yeah,
to have you. Glad
I'm
you watched.
excited. I'm excited about it, and I just want to make sure I get my speaker down here and everything.
Mm.
And well, here we are, Johnny.
Yeah.
It's our Sunday.
Mm.
I'm just going to bring it up to the. Here we go. That logo might be too big on your head, but I can fix that.
Okay.
It doesn't really matter. It's just our logo.
Yeah.
And so, Johnny, this is our 14th episode. I mean, it's
Wow.
pretty
Here we are.
exciting, eh?
It is.
And
I'm
are
happy.
you surprised that we've managed to?
No, not really surprised. More like relieved because we've we've had some glitches along the way,
Yeah,
and that's just the way life goes. And it's an important life lesson that when we embark on something new, a new creative endeavor such as this, we just
yeah,
have to have it in our mind's eye that it's not always going to be smooth sailing. There are going to be little choppy waters along the way, and it's fine as long as we have a positive mindset and as long as we have the ability to adapt and not be afraid to ask for help and ask questions and move forward and learn from whatever it is that we need to learn. And what's the most important thing is just being on the journey. And so I'm thrilled that
yeah,
we're doing our 14th episode right now. And
yeah.
I'm looking forward to our 100th episode. I'm looking forward to our thousandth episode. Easy for me to say, Mr. Articulate. Anyway, how was
Right.
your week this week, Polly?
Yeah, I mean, I was asking about your week.
Oh,
What happened in your week?
okay. Well, I uploaded another Lee Hacklin short story yesterday, and this
Sweet.
one is called "To Be or Not to Be All That You Can Be," which was inspired. I have to give credit where credit is due. It was inspired by the classic film "A Few Good Men," written and I believe directed by Aaron Sorkin. And that's where I get a lot of my ideas for my Lee Hacklin stories. I'll start with one of my favorite movies, and then I'll just spin it in a different direction. So I uploaded that yesterday. Not very long. The stories are getting shorter and shorter, and I'm fine with that. You know, the first few books that I wrote were about 100 to 200 pages, and the more recent ones are more like, I think the shortest one was 19 pages. I always tell people stories as long as they need to be. I'm only charging 99 cents. I mean, if you buy a comic book, you're looking at spending $4 or $5 for a
Yeah,
10-minute
Johnny,
read.
I think I have to interject because I
Please.
think a vast majority of people, if they're actually watching at this point, probably not because we haven't finished the show, but they probably don't know that you're a prolific writer and a very talented writer. We
Thank
have
you.
brought it up many times on the previous 13 shows, but just so they know that Johnny's career job in the service industry
Yes.
is security
Yes.
for 35 years, but his passion, his
We're
heart.
supposed to say security professional now, just for the
You can
record.
say whatever you like.
You can't say
I used to
security
call.
guard.
I
Some
used to
people are
when I was
anxious
in the
about that.
when I was in the hospitality industry. I used to call being a waiter a professional table maintenance engineer extraordinaire,
Wow, there
just
you
to make it
go.
sound special. And
Yes,
it
that
was because
is
that's how
definitely.
I took my trade. I really cared. But getting back to you,
Mm.
what's going on in work? What's going on? Johnny
I
is a
mean,
full time security
yeah,
officer guard
yeah.
for a major
I don't want to say the
hotel.
name. Yeah, I
No,
prefer to
major
keep that.
hotel,
Yeah,
major corporation
it's
in
a major
downtown Vancouver.
corporation, and it is. I love my job. I work Monday to Friday. I work afternoon shift, which I love because I can get up early some mornings and I can sleep in a little later other mornings. And it's a very physically demanding job. And as we
Yeah.
talked about before the show, we were talking about exercise and how important it is to keep our bodies moving. Now, I do lift weights 3 times a week and I do yoga. But even if I didn't do that stuff, I would be getting enough exercise every day just from doing that job. It is a workout. I mean, it's like sometimes at the end of my shift, my shirt is like literally soaked with sweat, even when it's cold outside. And you're getting called on the radio, and I love it. I mean, it's engaging, it's active, and I'm helping people every day
Yeah.
and dealing with homeless people. And
Yeah.
sometimes we have some very unpleasant, situations,
Yeah.
and I work with a great team. They're all much younger than me. I'm the old man. I'm the old man at
Yeah.
the club, and I
Yeah.
like to think that I'm able to impart some advice to them. For example, I always tell them when you, especially these kids, like some of these kids are like 19, 20 years old. I always tell them, like, have you worked security before? I said, well, I don't know if you want to hear this, but when you approach a homeless person, you can't think of them as a homeless person. You can't have an opinion about them, because if you do, that's going to affect your behavior towards them, and they're going to pick up on that. You have to treat them like they're your best friend. I always introduce myself, say, hey, I'm John. How you doing? Are you injured? Are you hurt? Do you need medical assistance? Are you okay? How's your day going? You want to hang out for a few minutes? That's fine. I always give them like 5, 10 minutes, and then they have to go. Especially if they have some drug paraphernalia around them. Another thing I tell my coworkers: never reach behind your back, because the person you're dealing with, they don't know what you're reaching for. They don't know that you're reaching for your radio or your
Right.
notebook. They
Right.
might think that you're reaching for a sidearm. So keep your hands open, stand at a 45-degree angle, because if I've so I don't know if you have you ever done martial arts. I've been in and out of martial arts my whole life. I did kickboxing for a couple of years, and
Yeah.
I've learned some very basic self-defense techniques, working security for so many years.
Yeah.
But what I always tell my coworkers, always stand at a 45-degree angle, because
Hmm.
then you're making yourself a smaller target. As boxers, they do that, right? They stand at a
Yeah.
45-degree angle, and
Yeah.
just smile and be super friendly and super understanding, because at the end of the day, what we want is their compliance, right?
Right. Right.
And some of the, not so much recently, but I've had a few experiences with some of my coworkers where they just were like, well, there's a fire and I'm going to pour gasoline on it. That's the way that they deal with people.
Yeah.
So, working security for 35 years, I mean, I feel like I've learned a lot about how to treat people, and I've learned a lot about myself. I've been in
Yeah.
some really hair-raising situations. Like, looking back, I remember when two guys were beating the crap out of each other at a library I was working at one time, and one guy pulled out a hammer, and I actually got in between them and pushed them apart. And this was no backup. And so I
Right.
think it was some of this experience. I don't mean to beat my chest about this stuff,
Yeah.
but it's nice when you have the memory of being like stepping up to the plate, because a
Yeah.
lot of people don't. I mean, you can cut me off at any point, but I remember one time there was a
Oh, I
car.
will.
I know you will. That's fine, because I will filibuster if you let
We
me.
got we got we got a show to fill.
And
It's
another thing, and another thing.
No, we're
Um,
on 7 minutes, and you're going
actually,
on one of your rambles.
actually,
And
this happened.
everything you say is very important, and
Yeah,
people need to know, because a lot of people don't know about security. They have a very negative perception about
they do. Well,
security.
it's because of Hollywood movies and TV shows.
Well, it's also because of in Vancouver.
Sometimes it's
If I go to a construction site, as where I live downtown in Vancouver is just a construction zone for the last 25 years,
yeah.
and it never stops, and it won't stop, because the insidious growth of everybody wanting to live in a country like Canada,
Who
and
can blame them?
well, you're in the top
Right?
1%, and
Yeah.
the rest of this world is on fire, and
Yeah.
it's pretty scary out there. And Canada is not a bad place to be. I'm happy to be here. You're in Vancouver, Johnny. I live in Vancouver as well. I'm in Kelowna. Kelowna is a whole different ballgame.
Mm.
But getting
For
back
our
to
listeners, Kelowna is a very rural neighborhood, right? Is it a
Well,
city? Is it an actual
it's a
city?
city. It is a city. There's if you look at the
I've never been there.
Kelowna's, well, you need
Yeah.
to come. You got to come up and stay at the house. I told you
I'm
numerous times.
down with
You
that.
got to do it. Just got to find some
February.
time and do it.
When I get
And
my vacation pay,
yeah,
we'll make plans.
absolutely.
We'll
And
make
come up
plans.
and stay, and you
That
can
looks
stay
good.
for free, room and board, and beer included.
Well,
Um,
I'm
I don't
in.
drink beer, but I'll drink beer with you.
Thank you.
And anyways, going back to my week,
The
it's
enabler.
not that exciting, to be honest.
Mm,
I'm up at Kelowna because I love Kelowna.
mm,
I'd like to live here at least 6 months of the year. That's the idea. And 6 months maybe in Vancouver, and then perhaps maybe go somewhere like Mexico or Italy, where my wife's from,
yeah.
for six
You
months. I don't
mentioned
know.
Italy on another podcast.
Yeah, in the meantime, I'm just trying to sort out the house in Kelowna. We had tenants leave.
Mm,
I haven't found any tenants in the last 30 days. It's the first time in 12 years that we
nuts.
haven't been able to find tenants quickly.
Mm,
I think that largely has to do with the current NDP government removing over 40,000 short term rentals, and in British Columbia and Kelowna, being really hardcore on the rules and eliminating any possibility. So I guess EB and the NDP, all the lobbying from the Hotel Association of British Columbia has worked out in the last 7 years, because that's why they eliminated it. The hotels Now they doubled their rates,
Right.
and then all the people that are visiting all the cities in British Columbia at a hospital to see a relative or a husband or a wife or a mother or a daughter that's suffering from a debilitating disease, cancer, whatever, they have no place to stay because they
Yeah.
can't afford to stay in a crap motel for
Right.
250 a night.
Yeah. That's horrible.
And the alternate situation would have been my house in a room where they could have paid $50 a day instead of 250. And unfortunately, the governments, they just don't care. They're only cared about their own mandate and policies, and they want to stay in power. But that's a
Right.
whole different subject and
Yeah.
topic that I will probably focus more on in my real estate aspect
Yeah. I'm really out of my
with
league.
professionals. I understand that, but
Yeah.
today I really wanted to talk about a new sort of. I was thinking about coffee this morning. I was like, how could we come up with something that's more Canadian based
Mm,
and focus on what's happening in Canada today?
mm,
And not just Canada, like British Columbia, because that's where we're from, and that's what we're going to talk about primarily. But Canada is a huge country,
it
second
is.
largest continent in the world, probably has more natural resources than any other country in the world. And there's only
We're
40
very
million
blessed.
people.
Yeah.
And the problem in Canada, which we'll talk about later in this episode briefly, is of that 40 million people, probably only 28% actually vote
Mm,
federally and provincially. And we have both provincially and federally big, like the Americans, have big, you know, voting situations, power
yeah.
hungry politicians are trying to stay in power and new people are trying to upseat them, and the Canadians are just fed up
Mm,
federally. And we'll get into that later as well. But today, the new I want to call, we're going to be doing this once a month, and it's called Canada Today, eh? With Pauly and Johnny.
there you go.
And what I wanted to talk about was
Good
things that are
segment.
happening in Canada. So, just briefly, Johnny,
Yeah.
in Vancouver, in your business and security, is there anything that you've noticed that is changing, or is the industry safe?
Oh,
Um,
yeah. I mean, I think there's always going to be a need for it's an essential service because human nature is not going anywhere. It is there's always going to be a dichotomy. There are always going to be people who make lousy choices. We do get the occasional car broken into, but I always tell people, first of all, I tell people politely, of course, super politely, it's like don't leave anything valuable in your car. But if there wasn't security, there would be a lot more break-ins. Every
yeah,
every business, every major building needs to have eyes and ears. I mean,
yeah,
technology, I don't think that technology, obviously, I heard there's a hotel in Japan where they actually have a robot security guard. I haven't
yeah,
actually seen this for myself. I
yeah.
mean,
It's true.
technology is taking over a lot of these jobs, but I don't see RoboCop happening anytime soon. I think that you need human beings, you need boots on the ground, you need good people who are keeping an eye out, protecting people's property, making a presence known. I remember on 9/11, I was working at a bank, and I'll never forget this. A lot of people came up to me, and I was standing outside with my bright yellow jacket, and they said, I never really appreciated security before, but now I do. And that's just the way human nature works. When things
Mm,
are going fine, when things are peaceful,
yeah,
people have a tendency to get complacent. They don't want to think about things going wrong. And I get that. I mean, it makes
mm,
sense up to a point. But then when something happens, and it doesn't have to be 9/11, it could be just a little thing, like maybe your car was broken, nothing in the
yeah,
world, but people have such a reaction. They just really lose their minds,
yeah,
and it's because there's no preparation. There's no like forethought of like, well, what are we going to do if this happens? Are we going to have some kind of like procedure that we can refer to, or some kind of standard that we can measure against? And so, look, I don't think security is. I really don't. I feel that my job is pretty safe. I mean, knock on wood, because again, just human nature being the way it is. Like I say, we're dealing with homeless people anyway, with their crack pipes and loitering, and
yeah.
sometimes
It's a big problem. And
causing
at the
disturbance.
end of the day, the one thing I've noticed about the security industry, because my wife is employed by one of the largest security companies in Canada, and my cousin Sean's been a private investigator and
Cool.
owns his own company. And my wife used to work for his old company, and so I know very much about it. Never been in that industry myself. I was from the hospitality industry, another service sales
Right.
aspect, very
At the
similar
end
and
of the day, it's all
synonymous.
about service. You're providing a service.
Yeah, well, you're
And
trying to, and the difference is that you've got 35 years experience, and you have the knowledge, and you care, and then you've got these kids coming into your industry, and they don't care about the industry. They
some
don't
of them
care.
don't. I don't want to
That,
say my current coworkers are all amazing, but
yeah,
obviously, yeah,
I'm
some of
not
them
just
are
talking
very,
about your coworkers. I'm talking about the industry. The
yeah.
reason why I brought it up, Johnny, is because it's the elephant in the room, and the elephant in the room is people are fed up with being underpaid, overworked, and underappreciated.
Mm.
And your industry is a prime example of that. They have
Sometimes
not they
I
have
feel
not raised the rates.
I
They
feel
have
pretty
not raised the
appreciated where I
rates.
work, to be
No,
honest
the
with you.
fact that you're a grown man and you've been
Yeah.
in the industry so long and you're able to survive in an expensive city like Vancouver is a testament to your resilience and your
Thank
hard work and your
Super
discipline.
Johnny.
And at the same time, what I'm saying is that is this industry, because they're not paying market rates.
Mm.
They're paying half, in my opinion. And the only reason why I say that is because, my cousin Sean's company, they do private investigation, which is a little bit different.
Right.
But they also do site security as well.
Mm.
And, can you, people in McDonald's are making $20 an hour.
Mm.
How can people sustain themselves in the security industry if they're making money that was the same money they were making in the 80s,
Well, I'm
90s?
I mean, I think I started at $3 an hour back in the
I
day.
know, but I mean,
McDonald's.
that was 35 years ago when, the Canadian dollar was a whole different ballgame and it was cheaper
Right.
and everything. But now everything's just it's ridiculously expensive. But anyways, it was just something that I find in the service industry, and the reason why I brought it up is because in the hospitality industry and in the retail industry, you're seeing a retail apocalypse.
Mm.
All the
Businesses
major
closing down.
corporations are closing down and
Mm.
they're bankrupting, and everything's going online.
Right.
And everything's COVID. Everything's been online. Everything's getting us stay in your house, stay in
Mm.
your lane, stay in your zone, stay in your career. Don't step outside of that. Everybody, it just feels like, I don't know, kind of feels like 1984 is like is approaching
Mm.
slowly but surely. And in the hospitality industry, I spent 28 years in the hospitality as one of my three trades. And I don't know how restaurants, bars, maybe because they can make money on booze. The prices of alcohol
Right.
in British Columbia, because of the government, what they charge is outrageous.
Mm.
But I guess people that would rather drink than eat are going out. But the
Yeah.
people that are eating and not drinking, they're staying at home and they're cooking at home and they're drinking at home because they can't afford to go out anymore.
Well,
And the margins,
I went to a bar last night and it was capacity.
yeah,
I mean,
but
there was
that's your local. You go there every weekend,
yeah.
right? I mean,
The
and
guy who
it's
runs that
what
place, he seems to be doing
it's
very
like.
well.
Yeah, but it is.
There
But
are
it's
exceptions.
it's a 55 seat place. I mean,
Yeah.
it's easy to fill up 55 seats, and it's in kids. I love it. It's a great little area. I grew up in that area. You did too.
Right.
You went to school at Henry Hudson right across the street. I get it. But
Sure did.
I'm talking about the industry as a whole,
Mm.
with the inflationary situation that's completely out of control, the cost of food, the cost of everything, bricks and mortar leases. It is it I'm telling you, retail apocalypse, hospitality apocalypse is right behind it. Security should always be fine. If you can find people that want to work for minimum wage.
Mm.
Not necessarily saying they're all minimum wage. They're
No.
not. There's different variances and different levels, but it's just something that's happening in Canada, and people are very frustrated. And we're finding that younger generations, the hipsters, the Gen Zs, and whatever the new one is,
Oh,
they don't want to work. They're
Z. You mean Generation Z?
who knows, man? I just lost track. None of these people want to. They want a life balance. They don't want to work. They want to have, they want to enjoy their weekends. They want to live in their mom's basement suite because they don't want to pay rent and they
Oh,
can
mom's
travel.
kicked her
Yeah,
out.
it's changing.
Yeah,
All these new generations are just not interested in participating in the world as we know it
yeah.
for the last multiple decades.
That's a pretty broad generalization, I feel.
Well, it is, but I
All
mean, we don't
morons.
have we don't have a lot of time,
Yeah,
and I just want to. This is what I notice in
yeah.
Canada right now, and I'm in Kelowna, and I see it here. It's no different. Kelowna is like Vancouver in the '70s.
Oh, really?
And
Hippies
if
on
you
the streets?
see what's that?
Hippies on the streets like Fourth Avenue?
I wouldn't say hippies. Now you're seeing more foreigners coming into
No,
Kelowna. It used to be, North American, Canadian, but now you're seeing a huge contingent of foreigners because let's face it, everybody wants to live in Canada because the rest of
sure.
the world's completely falling apart at the
Mm.
seams. But
Are
getting
there
back to the
so
getting
you
sorry,
sorry to interject. Do you see homeless people in Kelowna?
yeah, you see it.
Oh,
You see
really?
it everywhere.
Yeah.
And the reason why they come out to the West Coast is because it's warmer out here.
You
And
know you know, when I was in Australia, I saw maybe one person that looked like they might have been homeless. I
yeah,
was in 3 cities. I was in Adelaide and, Sydney for a night, booted around in a cab in Sydney for a night.
yeah.
It was not like Vancouver, that's for sure. Dramatic difference.
There's a very large percentage of people, I'd say 20%, that live on couches and rent that are really one paycheck away from being homeless.
Mm,
I think it's a huge problem. And I think it's going to get worse. If you look at what's happening in California, it's crazy. California used to be one of my favorite states, and in Vancouver, same
yeah,
thing. But in Kelowna, yeah, you see it to a lesser extent. I think bigger problems in Kelowna and Vancouver, like any other major cosmopolitan city in the world, is fentanyl, is
yeah, okay.
addiction,
Yeah.
and then mental illness.
Opioids.
And because our the healthcare in Canada, if you want to talk about Canada today,
Mm,
is you don't want to be sick in Canada today. You don't want to have a major surgery situation. You'll be waiting, and people are
yeah.
leaving
I've heard about the
Canada.
waiting lists.
They're going to Washington State, and they're
Sure.
paying the American dollars. They're losing 40 cents on the dollar to get it done now
Get what they
because
need.
it's a
Or they might
different. It's
die, right?
no, it's they probably will if they're
Yeah,
gonna wait for an important
yeah,
surgery 5 years later. You could be dead,
yeah.
and that's another problem. And again, this is not Debbie Downer scenario. This is just
No,
Canada today.
we're just keeping it real.
What are the problems of Canada today? And there's a lot of them. And yes, there's a lot of problems in many places in the world. We still have a great country.
Yeah.
I love
I
British
think on a
Columbia
comparative scale, it's about as close to paradise as we're gonna get.
for sure,
That's the way I look at it.
for
I
sure,
feel very
for
blessed living in Canada. I thank God
yeah,
every day I was born.
most definitely, most definitely. But there's a lot of problems, and unfortunately, they're exasperated by these hit and run politicians that come in for 4 years, and if they're lucky, 8 years, and destroy the foundation. I mean, if you look at the NDP government, going back to politics for a second, which I know you're not really interested in, most
That's
people
my
aren't.
favorite topic, Pauly.
No, it's not the favorite topic. As a matter of fact, out of 40 million people in Canada, probably 28% actually vote.
Paul's
I'd like to
referring to the New Democratic Party for our listeners who are not Canadian.
the new Democrats. It's like the same old bullshit.
Mm.
It's terrible.
They are
Uh,
left to center, I think would be it.
yeah, well, whatever you want to call them.
I think most Canadians are anyway.
The thing is that the current provincial government is rung up a $9 billion deficit in 7 years, which is extraordinary. It's only actually worse in federally with the Liberal government in 9 years. Literally destroying the fabric of Canadian society in 9 years. We went from the fifth strongest country in the world.
Didn't do that.
Right now, there's Central and South American. No disrespect to Central and South American countries
No,
that
it's
are have better GTI numbers than Canada. We used to be the fifth strongest. Now we're the 33rd. This
oh
is
God,
unacceptable.
what
We
happened?
have what happened?
Yeah,
Uh, just give Trudeau a call. Ask him.
okay.
See what he says. It's
If I
just
want
they're
to visit
gone.
this.
They're gone, and so Trudeau government's gone. I think there's a middle right situation that's happening throughout the world, and I think Canada is involved both provincially here, and I think conservatives are going to knock the NDP out. I think if it's going to be a close game, I think the Green Party is going to join with the conservatives,
Hmm.
and
What? That seems like
yeah,
a mismatch.
no, because the Greens have 8 to 10%, and if it's close and it goes down to the wire, anything to get rid of our current government,
Yeah,
$9 billion deficit. I could
yeah.
go on. It's just they're so tragically inept. It's incredible, but it's just one series of ineptitude after another, and people are fed up. And that's another reason why people don't follow politics is because they just at 28%. What are you going to do? Well, your vote counts. So, Johnny, even if you don't like politics, please go out and vote. And I tell everyone in the 19th of October, by the 19th, go out and vote. Just
Mm,
make your vote count. And then once you make your vote count, and you want to bitch and moan, that's okay. You voted. But if you don't vote and you're bitching and moaning, nobody
No,
wants to hear it.
of course. And of course, the people who bitch and moan the most are usually the people who are the least involved in life in any
Or the
context.
people like
Mental,
myself that are absolutely
mentally.
fed up and do vote, but there's only 28% of us voicing our frustrations. And the only way that we can do something about this apathetic, laid back, friendly Canada today, eh? How's it going, eh?
How's it going, eh? Take off, eh?
How you doing?
Can I
Now,
ask you about the hospitality industry? Going back
mm,
to that for a second. What's the
sure.
most important lesson you've learned from working in that industry for so many years?
Get out of it.
Oh,
Get out of it. It was a
yeah.
slave trade.
Eject.
It's like a slave trade, and largely to a lot of other working class trades in
Mm,
Canada currently. It's an empty ticket.
yeah.
There isn't light at the end of the tunnel at all. It's I knew it was failing. I've been in the industry since I was 9 years old. My mom hired me as a dishwasher at
Oh,
Tuesday's
really?
restaurant in Kerrisdale,
Oh, I
and I
didn't know
took the
that.
bus from Kits and I'd open up the restaurant. I would
Wow.
vacuum the front of the house, and then the dish pit was a nightmare because nobody showed up for their dishwashing duty the night before, and it was just a mess. And then the
Punctuality.
and
90% of life is
well, I'm
punctuality.
9 years old, so everybody took advantage of me, and I was getting paid like $2.25 an hour,
Yeah.
and they gave
That
me a
was about
few.
what I got. My first job was McDonald's. Brian, our mutual friend Brian Elk and I actually
Yeah,
put
yeah, you
together
told me
a
that.
McDonald's
And
downtown.
and 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 so I'd go there and I'd do everything. I clean everything, and I'm my mom cut my allowance off. I had to get Slurpee money somewhere and comic money and card collecting money. And
Gotta
and
have that
so
for
the
a
Swiss
Marvel
chef,
superhero cup.
at Tuesdays, Wolfgang, I'll never forget him.
Mm.
Kevin Lux from the Lux family also worked in that kitchen as
Oh, he went to Kits, right?
yeah, yeah, the Lux family.
Arnett?
I grew up with those guys, and they went to OLPH, Our Lady of Perpetual Help, down in Point Grey.
Mm.
And anyways, we all worked there, and so Wolfgang the chef was just really loved to drink,
That's such a great name.
and he was the head chef, and he was just literally hungover every morning. So he taught me how to do his mise en place. So I'd go early, vacuum the front of the house, clean up, take the garbage out, do all the dish pit. Then he would teach me to do the mise en place for him, so that he can come in late, hungover, and then pay me a few extra bucks and give me a free meal or whatever, which is cool. I'm 9 years old. What do I know? But
Yeah.
at the end of the day, it was slave wage.
Well, you
And
had some work experience anyway. I mean, that's
yeah,
good.
well, I mean, it was a trade. My mom was in the industry, and I didn't know any better, and she cut me off, and I had to make money, and I didn't know how paper route or go wash dishes. So I did both actually. I did the paper route and wash dishes.
Wow. Hard worker. Good
Well, I
work
mean,
ethic.
yeah, dude, I've been at it for a long time.
Wow.
Um,
Great.
and the next thing I wanted to bring up in Canada today is so we've talked about a little bit about politics, a little bit about the retail apocalypse. We talked about the hospitality industry. We talked about your security industry. And the other thing that's going on right now in Vancouver and British Columbia, specifically Kelowna, Victoria, the Okanagan Valley, and the greater Vancouver area is back to one of my areas of expertise, and that is real estate.
Mm.
And I know you don't follow real estate very much,
I
and like
love Glengarry
politics.
Glen Ross, one of my all-time favorite movies. Always be
Yeah,
closing.
well, I mean, great writer, David Mamet, and the
Yeah.
script is just amazing, and the actors are incredible. We talked about it briefly on one of our past episodes. But I mean, is there anything that you're curious about real estate at all that you'd like to ask me? Anything that you just say, I don't know, but what is the deal with this?
What advice would you give to someone like myself who's thinking about investing in a condominium or a piece of land? Like, what would be some bare bones advice that you would give a novice like myself?
Do you have rich grandparents or rich parents?
No, no, definitely not.
Okay, so the bank of mom and pa and grandma and grandpa is closed.
Mm, yeah,
And
whatever.
do you have a sugar woman or sugar daddy that is loaded?
No.
Ooh. And
Ah.
and and do you have a good credit rating?
uh, let's move on to another topic.
So I think the answer to that question is it doesn't look good
Yeah, I guess
for
I'll
a
be
vast
interested to find
majority
unless I can
of
get a hold of
working
them.
class of working class folks that are, kind and family orientated and have integrity and character, and they care about their professions. It's a dying situation. The young kids and young generations of today, they just want to live off their parents and grandparents, and it's a big problem. Nobody wants to work. You can get a construction job in Vancouver for 30 an hour
Yeah.
right now without, and just show up without a hammer, just steel tip and a helmet and steel boats, and you can get a job for $30 an hour.
When you were making a sale of some property and you had a potential customer kind of wavering, kind of on the fence, but then
Mm.
you got them to sign that document, what was it that you said or did that can you think of a specific incident where you were able to cross that finish line when you were afraid that there might be some pullback, if that makes sense?
Yeah, I'm not fear based in my profession. I've got thick skin. You can't be fear based. You've got to take care of your client's best interest. You have a fiduciary duty to look after your client's best interest, and of course that is about the integrity of one's profession, about the character, about the professionalism.
Right.
And Pauly does not play the gray area in life at all. I don't. I'm not here to take advantage of people. I'm not here. I'm totally service orientated. I'm
It's all
old
about giving
school.
at the end of the day. It's about giving.
I give my clients everything they need to, about honesty and disclosure and professionalism, and it's a very challenging industry. And at
And if
the
you
end of
give
the
love
day,
back, if you give love, you'll get it back 9 times out of
well, not
That's your
necessarily.
mindset. Times.
But at the end of the day, I don't give love to expect it or receive it. I am love.
Right.
I That's how I live.
Wow.
I live within the white light of love. I'm surrounded by it, and I follow that path every day. And that goes with my family, my friends, as you know, and my clients. And at the end of the day, that's a good question. That client relationship would have never gotten as far if there was ever going to be an issue where I could see that they weren't 100% committed. And there's a lot of documents, there's a lot of responsibility, there's a lot of communication, there's a lot of it's just, it's a very systematic situation. You work with a client, you have to discern and sort out exactly what they need and want and fulfill it. It is, you don't get paid until the deal's done. So
Right.
you're talking about relationships for the rest of your life.
I imagine that some of them are initially super excited, but then they're overwhelmed with all of this information, and you can see that some of them are getting cold feet. So what's your
Yeah,
backup?
well,
What's
they're
your
getting cold.
contingency?
Yeah, it's unfortunate that they're getting cold feet, and a largely a big part of the real estate industry in Canada, like anywhere else. But what I do know is about Canada is essentially everybody wants a piece of it, and that means federal government, provincial governments, municipal governments, and then all of the collective agencies that these powers and policymakers put in place are to put as many hands into the pockets of the people making money in the industry.
Yeah,
And the
that's
people making money in the industry are actually the same people that are taxing the heck out of people. And that is all levels of government, the CMHC, the Bank of Canada, all of the major 5 banks in Canada, and all of the small ones. Everything is geared towards the greed
right.
of the system, which
Nickel and
is
diming the customer.
government and bank. The rest of us, we're all minions.
Yeah,
It unfortunately, it's a very challenging thing. It's, you don't have to. It's not all doom and gloom. You can get in the industry. You can get in the industry and perhaps another place outside of Canada, like someplace that's fiscally responsible, affordable, and has a better quality of life, where the Canadian dollar goes longer. As an example, Mexico, the Canadian dollar is, we lose 40 cents on the dollar to our American neighbors to the south. But if you go to Mexico, you're gaining 40 cents, maybe 50 cents on the peso. And the quality of life, depending on where you live, can be exceptional. But that's changing as well, because everybody's trying to get out of the States and Canada and Europe and trying to find that next place where they can afford to live like a king on a
at
dime.
the end of the day, we have to adapt. I mean, we have to adapt what's
It's
beyond it.
adaptation is everything in life,
Yeah.
no matter where you are. If you
You
don't
have to have some
adapt,
malleability in your mind, otherwise
absolutely. And the thing is, we're surrounded by
you lose
change.
your mind.
We're surrounded by change. It literally is changing around us daily. And either you adapt or you don't.
You fall by the wayside.
And this is, and you don't want to do that because it's not a, it's, the wayside is not a place you want to be.
No.
And at the end of
I
the
mean,
day,
I felt that way for 35 years, and I don't feel that way anymore. I
right?
feel
Well,
like
that's one of the
I was
questions why I'm
watching
asking.
I was
I'm
watching the
not.
world go by, and now I feel like a participant in life. Better live
Well,
tomorrow.
I mean, that's how fast it goes by, Johnny, and that's, and I'm not just signaling you out as an example. I'm having a
You
conversation with a
are. You're
friend.
totally singling me out. I don't like it.
No. So getting back to clients is that I will be frank and honest with people right away and say, look, you have 5% opportunity, you have 1%, or you have no, or we can find a way. There are ways.
Mm,
At the end of the day, because of how our governments have set up the last, since the, the COVID, and what's happening is, and the banks, they're not making as much money. Oh, I mean, nobody feels sorry for the banks. At the end of the day, it's very challenging. A lot of people are leaving Canada and the States and buying in places where you can afford to buy, like Mexico, or Honduras, Central America, South America, even some countries in Europe. You can still get a pretty good value. Some areas of Portugal, some parts of Italy, believe it or not, where my wife is from, in Rome, you can actually, the housing prices have dropped. It's a real problem everywhere. But that's just I didn't want to go too much into real estate because I will be doing the Canadian Bro Show, all Canadian real estate with Pauly and guests. I
understand.
just wanted to talk about issues that are prevalent in Canada right now, and we've done that. We're at 36 minutes right now.
Mm,
The last thing I wanted to talk about, Johnny, I think is really important for both of us and everyone, is about our quality of life.
mm,
Right? We have jobs, we have relationships. For those that don't have relationships, your relationship with the vessel that you carry is the most important thing that you do. And the one thing I love about you is you're not an athlete per se, never have been,
no,
but
I'm pretty fit for
you
59 year
work
old.
out almost every day. You lift
Especially
weights.
especially the yoga. If I
Yeah.
wasn't a daily yoga practitioner, which I
Yeah.
am, which I have been pretty much for the better part of 5 years now,
Cool.
I don't
Cool.
think I could do my current job. That's how physically demanding it is. I would
Right.
be in too much physical agony. And I
Right.
recently went through, I don't mean to play the world's smallest violin, but recently went through a very serious injury where I pulled my groin and quadricep and some other part of my body all at the same time. And I was in excruciating pain for a month. Thank you, God, for helping me get through that. And thank you, Tiger Bomb. And thank you that I got that Yoga for Dummies DVD at the library a few years
Yeah.
ago.
Yeah.
And thank you for my awareness of the finiteness of time. And as
Yes.
we talked about in other podcasts, we have to live our lives in the present. There's no greater gift, no matter how old we are. We just live our lives in the here and now. Don't worry about the future. Don't dwell on the past because we have to think in a way that's empowering. If I didn't feel empowered, you'd be doing this podcast with somebody else right now. If I didn't feel empowered, I wouldn't have a single book online. I wouldn't have my Johnny's
Yeah.
Way a Facebook page. I
Yeah.
still weigh 235 pounds. And it all boils down to self belief and a mindset that works. Now, if you don't believe in God, then that's fine. We have free will to think for ourselves. But my faith in God basically boils down to this: I feel loved all the time, no matter
Yeah.
what's going on in my life. And so whenever, and of course I still have bad days. I still struggle with my temper sometimes, and because at the end of the day, we're all fallible human beings. But I have this trampoline in my head. I have this cushion that I can rely upon when my life goes kerflooey. And when we don't have that, and a lot of people live their whole lives, they don't have the mindset, and
Hmm.
that's why they react to every little hiccup. These some
Yeah. Yeah.
people,
Yeah.
like two guys walk out of a bar and their car's been towed, right?
Yeah.
One guy's like, Paul's like, oh, I should have put more money in the meter. But
Yeah.
the other guy loses his mind, right? The other
Right.
guy, like you said, it's the apocalypse. Why? Because he doesn't have the mindset. Once you have a mindset that works for you, and for me, it's all about love. I feel loved, and that's what motivates me to do what I'm doing. And I feel like that I'm a player in the game of life now versus a bench warmer, which I was before.
Johnny, you're not going to believe this.
Yeah.
I've got a courier guy that just buzzed my door.
What?
Can you just
What?
talk about
Okay.
something for 20
Okay.
seconds? I
Sure.
just got to go
I'll,
answer this door.
I'll do
A
that.
courier.
Okay.
It could be something
Sure.
important. I don't know. Give me one
All
second.
right. All right. Here we go. So Pauly is dealing with an unexpected guest of all things. Maybe it's Gandalf. No. Yeah. So in 2019, I kind of hit a wall in life. I was 53 years old, and I was spending way too much time by myself. I weighed 235 pounds. I was a couch potato. I was basically living like a drug addict, just watching DVDs every night and pounding down junk food. It's a wonder I'm still alive. It's a wonder I don't have type 2 diabetes or heart disease, knock on wood. And I decided to take a leap of faith. And again, I'm very tolerant of other people's views. If you're an atheist, if you're an agnostic, or whatever believes in you, whatever works for you is whatever works for you. That's great. But for me, taking that leap of faith was I consider a rebirth. I don't really see myself as 59. I see myself as 5 because it was 5 years ago that I became the John Leister that is speaking into this microphone right now. A manifester and not so much a couch potato. How was the courier and what did he have for you? Was it a Jehovah's Witness?
No, it was a
Oh,
courier, all right. And but it was actually for the tenants that have already left. The gentleman's wife. I didn't think it was myself. I couldn't remember anything that I had ordered. But at 40 minutes, Johnny, I just wanted to say thank you very much.
thank you,
Uh,
sir. Always fun.
today went by really nicely,
Yeah.
and it was a little bit about. We're going to be doing this segment once a month. And if you have any comments, if you would like to say anything about the show or you'd like us to talk about something in the show, please feel free to comment. I don't want to just, everybody in YouTube always says subscribe, like, blah, but we have that on our ticker below.
Please
Um,
like us. Please love us.
please.
We're needy.
But
We
on our
need
ticker below is all the information's there,
love.
and feel free if you'd like to, if you enjoyed the content, if
We
you
love
enjoyed the show,
you.
if you want to see more content, and you want to watch a couple of crazy older dudes from Canada, just keep it real. And once again, this is the Canadian Bro Show. My
Thank you
name
so
is Paul Bale. I'm the founder,
much.
director, and host of the Canadian Bro Show. And this is my partner in crime, John Leister, co host
Pauly,
and
Pauly, Pauly.
prolific writer.
Thank you
And
so
we are going to be doing an episode very soon. I've talked about it a couple of times. My old friend Jonathan Brown, who is a published writer in California, he's Canadian and American. We're going to bring him on the show, and we're going to do a fantastic, probably an hour-long show of finding out how to be a paid author, how to
much.
be somebody that and hopefully get Johnny a step closer to over the
Getting that
100
done.
books.
Well,
Guy's
short
written over
story.
100 books,
I
short
call them
stories, books. Yeah,
they're
whatever. It's
literary masterpieces. That might be a
well,
monologue.
they I don't know about masterpiece, but they are very good, and his writing's excellent. I really enjoy the
Thank
genre. But
you.
on behalf of Johnny and
Oh,
myself,
but there's one more thing, Polly. Our,
oh,
our pun. Our,
oh, pun and a
yeah.
book. Are we going to do the pun and
Are we gonna
book?
do a book? Okay, we do a book.
Well, let's
Okay,
do. Okay, we'll do the books first, and
okay.
then the pun.
I bought this at Indigo
Oh,
the other
nice.
day. This is
Yeah.
about the a little pricey. Okay, a bit of an indulgence, $50. But I love this author,
Ooh.
Jack Carr. He wrote The Terminalist, which is an Amazon series starring Chris Pratt. And this is about the 1983 bombing of the U.S. Embassy in Beirut, Lebanon. I'm about 50 pages in. Very sad, but very compelling. And I find that the older I get, the more I'm attracted to nonfiction and historical events, particularly ones that are war related, because I find them to be
Yeah.
very inspiring. And what are you
Nice.
reading, my dear brother?
Well, I've actually what I'm reading. I've actually read this. This would be my fourth time, maybe more.
Mm.
But it's a short read, and it's the 11 lessons of leadership from the 20th century's greatest winner. And I'll just put it up.
John
It
Leister. Oh, somebody else.
Bill
Okay.
Russell.
Oh, yeah. Okay, cool.
Bill Russell. It's called the Russell Rules. And Bill just passed recently,
I think
and
I listened to one of his audio tapes. Do
yeah.
you? Is that him? Do you?
Well, he
Ryan House?
he's been around for a long time, and he was
Yeah.
88 when he passed, and
I'm
one of
sorry
the
to
winningest basketball players of all time. And with the old Boston Celtics franchise, when there was only 6 or 7 teams, maybe 8 teams, I think, and I think he won 11 championships. So his book, The 11, it's
Ah,
really it's just a quick read. It's a good reminder of dotting your life with really positive
right.
key segments that can help make your life better, more loving, more kind. And sometimes just a reminder is all you need. And I
Think
don't mind reading a good book more than
yeah.
once.
For me, the key to happiness, if you're in sync with the vision that you had for yourself as a child, whatever that vision was that elated you, if you're at least in the ballpark, I mean, you might not be a professional athlete, but you
Mhm.
might have a YouTube channel
Yeah.
about your favorite sport, as an example. You know,
Yeah.
you're participating, not maybe not physically, but with your hands or with your
Yeah.
face or with your voice.
Yeah.
Then really you've won the lottery. But if
Yeah.
you procrastinate, as I did for so many years, if you make excuses, then you're going to suffer. And other people will pick up on those feelings. And I
Yeah.
believe that our feelings have a global impact. So if you feel
It,
good about yourself,
yeah.
you're actually making the world a happier place. And the
Absolutely, and
reverse
and
is also true.
I completely agree with that. I think it's a great way to end this off. In that, at the end of the day, let's be kind out
Mm.
there. It's free. Let's learn to love, learn to care, learn to forgive,
Forgive
and learn
ourselves. I
learn
think a
to
lot of
love
people are
yourself.
walking
Learn to
around
love yourself and
and
forgive yourself,
about the
but
past.
forgive others.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, do something nice for somebody every day. Just be
Set
kind.
be an example setter. Never mind
Yeah,
whether
just
people are
and
hearing.
but don't expect anything. Just do it of the kindness of your heart. Do something that makes you feel good that hopefully will make somebody else feel good. In the meantime, thank
Mm.
you very much for joining our 14th episode. It's quite amazing. Again, my name is Paul Bale, founder, director, and host of the Canadian Bro Show with my old friend and talented writer and co-host John Leister.
Thank
Look
you.
forward to see you next week. We're going to be doing at least one episode every Sunday. And in the meantime, if you enjoy this, you know what to do. Thank you very much for joining us. And Johnny, thanks again for having you
Thank
just
you,
be
sir.
so special and such a good
You
friend.
as well. Those feelings are reciprocated. I just have one more thing to say before we go.
Oh,
Um,
pun?
well, it turns out that a pencil used by William Shakespeare was recently discovered, but experts are unable to determine if it's to be or not to be.
Oh, that's so good.
Thank
That's hilarious.
you,
Eh,
Internet.
Yeah, you know when you're cracking up in your own gig and you didn't even write it. It's good, right? That's awesome. Anyways, thanks everybody.
Have a nice
Peace,
day.
love, and
Peace and love.
happiness. We love
Manifest.
you. We
Participate in life.
Yeah, and just continue to support us. We
Find good
really appreciate
vibration.
it.
Cheers.
Talk to you soon, Johnny. Take care, bro.
Take care. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.